Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please rise to welcome the arrival of the Right Honourable Christopher Luxon, Prime Minister of New Zealand, and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Please be seated. May I now invite Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong to deliver his opening remarks. Prime Minister, please.
Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Kia ora and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome Prime Minister Luxon to Singapore. I'm very happy that he's made Singapore his second overseas visit since taking office, just 150 days ago. I'm also very glad to see him again so soon after we met in Melbourne on the sidelines of the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit. The Prime Minister and I reviewed our excellent bilateral relations this morning. This year is the 5th anniversary of the Singapore-New Zealand Enhanced Partnership. Across the 5 pillars of the Enhanced Partnership, all 34 initiatives have made good progress. We appreciate New Zealand's long-standing support for the Singapore Armed Forces military training in Waioro, and we look forward to the next edition of Exercise Thunder Warrior in 2025. We are pursuing concrete cooperation under the climate change and green economy pillar of the Enhanced Partnership, which we added in 2022, including in sustainable aviation and low-carbon solutions. We also have the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement, which Singapore and New Zealand were founding members of, and the queue of aspirant economies to the DEPA testifies to its value and traction. We are also exploring collaboration in science, technology, and innovation, including in data science and future foods. Today, we are expanding our enhanced partnership again by adding a 6th pillar, which will be on supply chains and connectivity. As small states, Singapore and New Zealand share a deep understanding of the importance of maintaining supply chain connectivity, especially in times of crisis. In the early months of the COVID pandemic, when borders were shut and supply chains were disrupted, we supported each other. We formed an air freight partnership which brought 100 tons of food from New Zealand to Singapore and brought essential medical supplies from Singapore to New Zealand. The new pillar on supply chains and connectivity reflects our continuing commitment to keep our supply chains connected in a volatile global environment. We agreed to begin formal negotiations on an agreement on trade in essential supplies to facilitate trade in essential items and minimize disruptions during crisis. We also signed 2 MOUs on electronic invoicing and trade facilitation, which will boost trade links and strengthen cooperation under our Digital Economy Partnership Agreement. There is, of course, much more that our 2 countries can do together, and we should do together. The Prime Minister and I therefore agreed that it will be timely next year, the 60th anniversary of our diplomatic relations, to elevate the enhanced partnership further. And we will explore future-oriented initiatives in areas such as sustainable aviation, the green economy, and supply chains. We also discussed regional and geopolitical developments. We agreed on the importance of an open and inclusive rules-based multilateral order which supports ASEAN centrality. I welcome efforts by the Prime Minister and his government to deepen New Zealand's engagement with Southeast Asia and ASEAN. New Zealand can contribute much to ASEAN's integration in the digital and green economies, and between ASEAN and New Zealand, we look forward to commemorating 50 years of dialogue relations next year. I'm happy that the Prime Minister has brought along a big business delegation to explore further economic opportunities. I understand they're having a gala dinner this evening, and I'm sure that over the wine and the food, many new business opportunities will pop up. So once again, I'm happy to host the Prime Minister in Singapore and look forward to working with him and his government to take their bilateral relationship to greater heights.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you. May I now invite the Right Honourable Christopher Luxon to deliver his remarks.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can I just say to Prime Minister Lee, thank you so much for the very, very warm welcome to Singapore. As you know, this is my first time in an official visit to the Lion City, but I have been a regular visitor here over many years, and it is an absolute pleasure to be back meeting with some old friends and connecting with new colleagues as well. So thank you again for the very warm welcome that we've received here. Singapore and New Zealand share a long-standing relationship, and it's anchored by our defence ties that continue to today. As small, developed trading nations, we share very similar outlooks on regional and global issues, and we have warm and personal bonds that have endured over many, many decades. My meeting with Prime Minister Lee this morning reaffirmed the importance of that relationship. It is symbolic that Singapore is my first visit into Southeast Asia. Singapore is an indispensable partner for New Zealand. My government is committed to investing the time and the resources necessary to strengthen New Zealand's international connections, and this starts with prioritising our key relationships with Southeast Asia, including with Singapore. Prime Minister, in our meeting today, we reflected on significant developments made in the Enhanced Partnership Strategic Alignment, as you outlined before, between Singapore and New Zealand. Of course, we're focused on 5 key pillars: trade and economics, security and defence, science, technology and innovation, people-to-people links, and more recently, climate change and the green economy. And it's over 5 years since the launch of the Enhanced Partnership, and now it is time to look to the future about what more we can do together. And so today, Prime Minister Lee and I agreed to elevate the Singapore-New Zealand relationship by the time of the 60th anniversary of our diplomatic relations in 2025. And so we have asked our officials to consider further initiatives in existing areas of cooperation, such as supply chains and food security, green economy, and there is ambition for us all to do more together around things such as AI. Prime Minister Lee and I also discussed ongoing global challenges and instability that poses risks to our mutual economic resilience and national security. And in light of these challenges, and as a strong signal of our commitment to elevating the relationship, we have agreed to add a supply chains and connectivity pillar to the Enhanced Partnership, to deepen our cooperation on supply chain resilience and to reduce barriers for our businesses. Under this pillar, Prime Minister Lee and I have directed our officials to launch negotiations for a groundbreaking agreement committing New Zealand and Singapore to streamline its essential supplies during times of crisis. And as you pointed out, this continues our proud tradition of working together as pioneers, developing novel trade frameworks such as the CPTPP and the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement. We learnt the importance of friends standing together during COVID, when New Zealand and Singapore coordinated to keep our supply chains open, critical medicines for New Zealand, and food security for Singapore. Supply chain resilience is not just about times of crisis, though, and there are opportunities to expand commercial partnerships between Singaporean and New Zealand businesses and to provide investment through enhanced connectivity. So I'm pleased to see 3 trade arrangements have been signed to streamline and to digitise trade. A food security mission from Singapore will also travel to New Zealand to connect with more business opportunities. The Prime Minister and I also reflected on the importance of our trade and our investment relationship. Singapore is New Zealand's 4th largest trading partner. It is also the 4th major source of investment into New Zealand, and we want to continue to explore more opportunities together as well. I am here, as the Prime Minister pointed out, with a delegation of very innovative New Zealand businesses across a range of success sectors, and New Zealanders need to build those new connections with new partners and also renew existing ones as well. Prime Minister, we also discussed how the low emissions transition presents opportunities to drive economic growth and innovation for our economies and our businesses. Singapore's role as a regional green finance and carbon services hub complements New Zealand's role as an investment destination for clean energy production and also a testbed for sustainable technologies. I'm pleased that we are now looking at a 2-way green economy business missions as a practical step to identify, to promote those commercial opportunities for our companies in these areas. There was also agreement that Singapore and New Zealand would further enhance cooperation in sustainable aviation and shipping, as well as collaborate to advance green customs issues. Prime Minister, on defence and security, we have long-standing cooperation underpinned by 5-power defence arrangements, and that is the cornerstone of New Zealand's defence engagement in Southeast Asia. Let me be clear, peace and stability in Southeast Asia are absolutely integral to New Zealand's security, and we have a stake in Singapore's future. I am pleased to see that Singapore will resume live-firing military exercises in New Zealand from 2025 under Exercise Thunder Warrior, and this continues New Zealand's long history hosting Singapore Armed Forces for training and military exercises. And just finally, on a personal note, I just wanted to acknowledge you, Prime Minister Lee, for your commitment to Singapore and to the Singapore-New Zealand relationship over the past 20 years of your premiership. Prime Minister, you have announced your intention to step down later this year, so it is absolutely fitting that we recognise the legacy that you leave Singapore, the region and beyond. You are quite rightly esteemed as a leader of the highest order for the world, and I want to say thank you for your warm friendship and the wise counsel that you've provided to me and to New Zealand and for other Prime Ministers over many, many years, and I just wish you all the very, very best for your future, whatever that may hold. So thank you again for hosting us.
Thank you very much for your very warm words.
Thank you. We now come to the question and answer. The first question from Singapore media, please.
Hi, Sabrina from CNA here. My question is to both Prime Ministers. So given that there will be discussions to elevate the enhanced partnership next year, what are some areas that will be looked into, and what will this partnership look like?
Well, we've been stepping up our cooperation with New Zealand ever since we launched the enhanced partnership 5 years ago. For example, by adding new pillars to reflect the expansion of our cooperation into the green economy, now supply chains. But we think that there's scope for us to do even more, and therefore we've decided that next year we're going to substantially elevate the enhanced partnership because it's the 60th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. And we're looking for new areas. I mentioned a few of them just now. It's to do with the green economy, sustainability, carbon cooperation on carbon, low carbon activities, cooperation on CCS, on supply chains for essential foods, for example. These are just some of the areas. There's also defense cooperation, and there's possibility to do more, and we will see if we can work on that.
And I would just add that we have two small countries that actually have a close relationship with each other. I think building out the clean green economy is actually a very good opportunity for us, whether it's with respect to carbon markets, sustainable financing. There's a lot of work between our two countries that I think we can progress there. And excitingly, actually the supply chain pillar that we've added today is very important because food security is important to Singapore. Singapore is our major hub for which our imports and exports go through as well. So I think they're very good things for our teams to work through.
Thank you. Next question from New Zealand media.
Kia ora, Jenna Lynch from News Hub. This is a question for Prime Minister Lee, but Prime Minister Luxon, feel free to answer if you wish. Both of you spoke about our country's close security and defence ties. Given the recent escalation in the Middle East as well as rising tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, how close do you think we are to the brink of a world war, and what can small nations like us do?
I don't think we are close to a world war. I think it's a very troubled world, and in particular it's a very, very troubled Middle East. And the war in Gaza continues to have repercussions more widely, particularly in the Middle East, but actually with impact on opinions and on politics in countries around the world. Certainly in Europe, in America, in this part of the world too, it's having people are seized with it. They are very upset by what's happening. They have very strong feelings about it. So what can we do as small countries? We can't solve the problems in the Middle East. Nothing is going to solve the problems in the Middle East within the foreseeable future. They can be managed. They can be. You can try and calm things down. You can get people back onto a track to talking about peace. Maybe. And even that's going to be very hard given what has happened October 7th and post-October 7th. But if you don't try to do that, then you are saying the only way is the way of the sword, and I think that is going to lead to calamity for everybody. So if you do not want a calamity for your own people, then you have to make some very painful decisions, and you need very strong and courageous leadership to guide your population forward to a less dangerous place. Small countries, we have to take stands. We have to explain our stance, our attitudes, what we consider right, what we consider wrong, what we think will be helpful towards promoting a bit more appreciation, understanding of the path forward, to developing a global consensus on the direction to go. That means working bilaterally. That means working together at international forums, ASEAN regionally, at the UN, when the matter is debated or voted. And we have stands which we have to take and which have to be clear. Because there are principles at stake, there's humanitarian considerations at stake, and there are vital national interests for us at stake. And our vital national interest is an international order which is orderly, which has got a certain system in it, which enables countries big and small to live and coexist together, if possible, prosper together. And where there is a basis to decide things objectively and not just based on the law of the jungle and might is right.
Very good. I just would echo those same comments. I mean, the Prime Minister and I have spoken, and we have a very aligned position, as you would expect. We're both countries that respect international rule of law. We're both countries that respect humanitarian law, and our positions are very much aligned. As we've seen in the Middle East, what we've been saying and what we want to continue to say is that we really want people to exercise restraint. This is the last thing this region needs, is an escalation of tension. It needs to de-escalate, and as the Prime Minister says, get into a negotiation and a conversation that actually ultimately leads to a Middle East peace process and ultimately two-state solution. So,
thank you. The next question from New Zealand Media 2.
Kia ora, it's Benedict Collins from One News in New Zealand. Given the struggles that we're seeing in this region, and given the economic slowdown that we're seeing in China, how important is it for countries like Singapore and New Zealand to have a diverse trading base and not be too reliant on one country, such as perhaps China?
We would like to do business wherever the business is. And China is a very big market. So to say that you don't want to do business in China, well, you have to have a very stout heart to make such a decision. But at the same time, we would all like to enhance our cooperation and our trade with other partners as well. And for this part of the world, I think that means having an open region, one with connections to America, to Europe, to India, to Australia and New Zealand. And to develop those ties so that you are able to cooperate omnidirectionally. And, well, if there are ups and downs in one place, you can't help being affected by them, but you may hopefully not be swamped by them. And that's what we're trying to do. We do it bilaterally. We have the enhanced partnership between us. We have the FTA between us, which has stood and held. It was the first one we ever concluded. And I think yours was the second
one, yes.
And we also have other regional arrangements. We have the CPTPP, which is now a reality. We've got the RCEP, which is now also a reality, and New Zealand is part of that. And we've got the the digital economy partnership agreements, which has Australia is not in. I keep on saying the wrong country. But New Zealand is in, Singapore is in, we have a couple of other countries, and there's a queue of participants wanting to come in. And I think that's the way we should work, so that you have overlapping groups, and they each contribute something, and it's not quite as good as having one whole cloth, everybody free trading with everybody else, but short of that impossible ideal, we are not bad.
Yeah. And I'd just say, look, we're a country of 5 million people. There's a world out there of 195 other countries and 8 billion people. It's very important for us that we do business with as many people as we possibly can. That's how our folk at home are advanced. One in 4 of our jobs at home are really around trade. So it's really important that days like today, we're actually wanting to deepen our economic relationship here in Singapore and across Southeast Asia are really important to us. We have good scaffolding and good architecture in place around trade. Obviously, Singapore and New Zealand were, with two others, were the primary instigators of the CTPP, and that's been something we feel very proud about. But I think for us, it's like we want to be able to do business with as many people as we possibly can.
Thank you. The last question from Singapore media, please.
Hi, afternoon, Prime Minister. It's Jean from the Straits Times here. In a similar vein, how should small countries like Singapore and New Zealand respond in an era of increasing deglobalization? And for example, with how New Zealand is considering joining AUKUS as well as negotiating a new type of partnership with NATO. So how will this affect Singapore and countries in the region here?
Well, there's the economic aspect and there's a security strategic aspect. The economic aspect for a small country is other countries can deglobalize, we cannot. And there's no hope. I mean, if Singapore has to make all the chips which for ourselves, we will never make chips. And if New Zealand has to eat all the food which it produces,
we'd be very large.
It won't make a living either. So we've got to trade, we've got to do business, and I can't do it always multilaterally with 200 countries in the world, but I can find partners and do more together with the partners. And that's what we're doing between Singapore and New Zealand and with other partners as well. On the security side, I think different countries will have different postures. You must take as a reality that this is the way the world is. Not everybody is best friends forever with everybody else. And some get along, some are at odds, some are not at war, but neither do they trust one another. And we have to work our relations with as many of them as possible on a stable basis. There will be security partnerships, there will be alliances, there will be treaty obligations in some cases. Different countries are in different positions. New Zealand is a member of ANZUS. Some parts of that agreement are fully active, some parts are not. Australia is a member of ANZUS too, but they decided they also needed AUKUS, and they have got therefore an additional layer with America, and they have also brought in the UK. Singapore is not in ANZUS, we are not in AUKUS, we are not a treaty partner of the United States. You are through ANZUS, and so are the Australians. We are not. We are what is called a major security cooperation partner of the US. This is a technical term. We are the only one of its kind in the world. It means we do a lot of security cooperation with the US, security in terms of counterterrorism, for example, anti-extremism, but also in terms of defense cooperation, in terms of defense purchases, training. But we are cooperation partners, not treaty partners, not treaty allies. And there's a fundamental difference. And therefore, we can cooperate with them in many different ways, but push come to shove, there is no treaty obligation. If America is attacked, we go to America's defense. If we are attacked, America comes to our defense. That's not where we are. That's not where we stand. And I think where we stand is the right place for Singapore to be. And New Zealand is in a slightly different position, and you will no doubt be assessing how, in the light of the changes in the strategic environment, you want to adjust and improve that position. But that's really for New Zealand.
I'd just say for clarification, New Zealand is not a member of AUKUS, obviously, but what we are wanting to do is the previous government had the same position, which is to explore the potential of what's called Pillar 2. We have a long-standing nuclear-free position, which is non-negotiable for New Zealand, and will remain unchanged under my premiership as well. But within Pillar 2, there are options for us to actually start with the pathways just been announced in the last couple of weeks. We'll continue to explore opportunities that may sit there. Likewise, we're not a member of NATO either, but we are a partner of NATO. And again, I guess in many ways, Singapore and New Zealand, we have our independent foreign policies, as probably 195 other countries do too. But for us, we want to work with like-minded like-minded countries that stand up for the same values that we believe in. And so that's why we do partner where necessary with NATO countries, but also if I think about Singapore and New Zealand, we have a very strong alignment on our core values as small countries in the world. And so where it makes sense, we will partner with like-minded countries that advance not just our own interests, but those values that we actually care about deeply.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank
The
you very
last
much.
handshake shot before we end the joint press conference. Thank you very much. The Prime Ministers will now take their leave. We've come to the end of the joint press conference.